Hi everyone, my name is Emily. I am a lead teacher at Rivers Montessori for the Children's House classroom. So I'm just going to go through an overview of what it is that we do at Rivers Montessori in the Children's House. So first of all, let's talk about what is Montessori. So Montessori is a way to approach education that is developmentally appropriate. So we do have mixed age classrooms. So we have within the Children's House, we have children ranging from the age about 3 to 6 years old. So their last year in the Children's House is their kindergarten year. And within that environment, we are seeking to create a really beautiful, aesthetically pleasing environment that really draws children in, and we want to engage their natural curiosity. We allow for freedom of choice within the classroom, but with that, knowledge precedes choice. So as the lead teacher, I will give presentations to children on how to properly use materials. And then once they know how to appropriately use the material, they have the freedom to take it out throughout the morning and afternoon work cycles. And they're welcome to use that material for as long as they want. And they also have the freedom of movement. So they can move about the room at their leisure, and they can choose to work at a table, or they can choose to work at a working mat that is laid out on the floor. Or we have small tables called chowkies, which they're able to move about the room and set up where they would like to work. We really want to serve a child's developmental needs. And so as a lead teacher, I do a lot of observing, and I want to observe what the child, where they're at. And so I will give presentations based on where children are at. And then once I give a presentation, they're welcome to explore with that material independently. Because children learn through exploration, they learn through experience, and we really want to help them on that journey. We seek to educate for life, not just for academics. We want to focus on the whole child, and focusing on academics is important, but we also want to be focusing on social learning, emotional learning. We have a whole curriculum that's about grace and courtesy. For instance, how do you introduce yourself? How do you ask for something kindly? How do you move past somebody in a crowded space? So those are skills that we want to give to our children. All the materials in the Children's House classroom move from concrete to abstract, which follows the natural development of a young child's brain. All of this comes together so that children have a very individualized learning experience. So I have a lovely quote here from Maria Montessori. "We do not say that we want to prepare a school for the children. We wish to prepare an environment for life where the children can develop a life." So we really want to not just provide a classroom, we want to provide an environment that calls to the child, that the child feels comfortable in, they feel safe in, and they feel that their needs are being met. Again, academically, socially, emotionally, that whole educational experience. So there are 4 areas within the Children's House. There is practical life, sensorial, language, and math. So practical life fosters independence and self-efficacy that children crave. Practical life involves work such as different polishing work, such as glass polishing, wood polishing. It involves sweeping, table scrubbing, coffee grinding, food preparation, flower arranging. So practical skills that children will be able to use throughout their life and in their home life. When they go home, they can use these skills. But beyond that, practical life really offers a great experience with fine motor development. It helps build concentration, and learning really comes from the ability to concentrate. We want to build that concentration. It also helps children with their logical sequencing, as far as this is the first step, this is the second step, this is the next step, and then going through the steps to accomplish a goal. It also helps develop the will, as the child has to make a choice, take that work out, and then follow through all the way to the end, which means putting that work away neatly so it's ready for another child to take out. The sensorial area is exactly what it sounds. It's allowing children to have sensorial experiences with the world. So we have concrete materials that are physical representations of changes in dimension, changes in texture, changes in temperature, changes in taste. So children are able to have these experiences, these sensorial experiences, and then we connect these sensorial experiences with language. And this allows children to sort their world. It builds the vocabulary, but it also helps with that sorting of the environment around them. The language area involves reading and writing, but prior to that, we start with spoken language. We want to build young children's vocabulary by exposing them to a very, very rich environment of speech. We also want them to start to recognize sounds in words. So we play a lot of sound games so young children can start understanding, let's talk about words that start with the sound p. So even prior to them learning what symbol is represented, they're able to recognize these sounds within words around them. And we play a lot of fun games as far as sound games. And then we do move on to reading and writing. And within Montessori, we start with writing and then move to reading, which is different from a lot of other educational philosophies. But we start by presenting them letters that are on pieces of wood, and the letters are in sandpaper. And so the children can trace with their hand the letter, and we give them the phonetic sound. And the children are able to learn the sounds that are associated with these symbols before they even necessarily have an appropriate tripod grip on a pencil. So we're isolating difficulty for them so they have the knowledge of these sounds, and then they're able to build off of that understanding and start writing with we have a material called the movable alphabet, and where they're able to move letters, which again, they can start building words without having to worry about that sometimes frustrating barrier of a proper tripod grip on a pencil. And then once that tripod grip on the pencil is developed, and in the picture here, we have a young child doing a work called Metal Insets, in which she is tracing shapes, which is great for learning geometric figures, but also really helping with that tripod grip. Once that tripod grip is developed, then we really can start moving into writing on paper and chalkboards. And then we move right into reading. And so it's a really multi-sensory approach that we come at it from multiple different angles, by playing different games, by working with that muscle memory, by working on that tripod grip, by having a lot of fun games that involve incorporating different parts of speech, that involve whole body movements. When we're talking about the verb, we're acting out these words and then symbolizing what the verb symbol is, a big red circle. We symbolize it. And so we're able to allow children to have real life experiences with these very abstract ideas. Math moves from concrete to abstract. So a greater understanding and appreciation of mathematics can occur. We start with introducing children to the numbers 0 through 9. And we work on those numbers as far as quantity and as far as symbol recognition. And then we move on to the decimal system, and children start to understand how the decimal system works. And then we start going into, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. We work on linear counting, we work on skip counting, and all of this is oftentimes done with these beautiful bead chains, or within the decimal system, golden beads, where there's a physical representation of units, tens, hundreds, thousands, so they can have a physical experience with these concepts, and they can see that geometric progression of numbers in the decimal system. So the mathematics area is one of my absolute favorites, because it is wonderful to see how children thrive mathematically when they're given these very concrete keys to understanding mathematics. So here are just some pictures of life at Many Rivers Montessori in the children's house. So here are some children who are doing practical life work. We have a child who is caring for the plants. He's watering the plants within the classroom. In the center photo, we have two children who were eating at the snack table. That is in the center of the photo with the two white chairs, and they realized that there was crumbs on the floor, so they decided that they were going to take the initiative to clean that up. And then the last photo is a child who is creating a flower arrangement for the environment. And then once they're done creating that flower arrangement, they can place it wherever they think it would be most beautiful within the classroom. Here are some pictures from the sensorial area. We have a child who is building one of the most famous Montessori materials, the pink tower, which are cubes that are gradually decreasing in their dimensions. And this child is a little bit older in the children's house, and he is trying to really line those cubes up perfectly so that they're centered. And so young children will oftentimes maybe put the blocks out of sequence, and that's okay. And then you see that natural correction versus an adult coming up and saying, oh, that's not the right order. Children naturally are able to look at the tower and realize there's something off, and they can correct it. And then as throughout their time in the children's house, they can really continue to develop that fine motor movement of putting them very carefully right on top of each other, so you have this beautiful tower created. In the center photo, we have a child who is doing a puzzle map of Africa. We have puzzle maps for the world, for the United States of America, and for all of the continents, with the exception of Antarctica. This child is having a great time because puzzles are just fun, but they're getting this sensorial experience of this continent and the countries within the continent of Africa. And this is so fun to watch children do because they really learn how to place these pieces very quickly. And it's really, really fun to watch. And then as they become a writer, we oftentimes will use these maps for children to create their own maps, and then they can paint them and label them, and it's really fun. So that is an example of a young child doing our puzzle map. And then we have a child who's exploring with leaf shapes. And so this child is exploring with leaf shapes and matching the different leaf shapes to cards. Language is then introduced as far as the language of, what are these different shapes? How do we classify them? And so it's really fun to see children make these connections, since having these sensorial experiences with physical objects. And then once they master using the physical objects, we can add that language to, like the cherry on top. So this child was having just a lovely time that day. And language. Here are a few examples of language. In the center photo, there's the movable alphabet I was talking about, where this child is able to write without that frustration of the tripod grip on the pencil. Because, creating symbols with a pencil or chalk is really a skill. Handwriting is such a skill, and it's something that needs to be developed over time. But children have the ability to recognize the sounds letters make before maybe that handwriting piece is mastered, and we want to encourage them to write. And so the movable alphabet is just a wonderful tool for them to be able to do that. The child who's working on the chalkboard is in an early phase of their writing, and so she's doing it on a chalkboard she can bring right to her table. So she doesn't have to stand in front of the whole room and have everybody watch her. She has her own workspace where she's able to practice making the letter S. The child who is working at the table writing with a pencil, he is working with our small movable alphabet. And so he was able to write a sentence that he came up with himself, and he was able to also utilize capital letters and punctuation. And once he sounded out the words in his sentence, then he is copying his sentence onto paper. And then he was working on his illustration in this photo, where he wrote his sentence and then he was excited to add that special touch of an illustration. Math. here are some great examples of the concrete materials we use to expose children to math. So the child in the center photograph is working on our addition strip board. And so this child is able to put these strips together. Each strip is a representation of a different number, 1 through 9. And the child is putting the red and the blue strips together to create number combinations and to come up with sums. And once he comes up with the combinations, he's recording his discoveries in a little book. The child who is working with the number cards, he's working with the decimal system. And so what he did is he set up his on the right mat, you can see he has a cube and he has some squares, and you can't see it, but then there's a representation of 10 beads on a bar, and then he has units. And so he set up the physical representations of the decimal system, units, tens, hundreds, and thousands. And then he is laying out the cards that match the decimal system. And so what we were doing in this work is we were matching quantity with symbol. And so we would end up sitting in front of that red rug, and I would give him a number such as six tens or 60, but I'd say, okay, now bring me this amount. And he would go over to the tens and he'd get 6 of them and he'd match them. And then we would gradually increase the challenge by, I would give him, okay, bring me 241. And then he would match the beads to that numeral. So he's really just connecting symbol and quantity, making that connection. So he really understands when he's writing these numbers what that means. The child on the left is working with our multiplication bead bars. And so this child was working on the multiplication table of 4. And so those yellow beads you see, it's a little hard to see, but those yellow beads are bead bars with 4 beads. And so what he did is he placed the first bead on one bead bar and he realized, okay, this is 4. And he recorded 4 times 1 equals 4 on his paper. And then he took 2 bars of 4 and he counted them out and he realized, oh, it's 8. And so then he placed a bar of 8 underneath those 2 bars of 4 and he recorded 4 times 2 equals 8, and so on all the way through that multiplication table. So again, this connection between the concrete and the abstract is so important, because when a child is able to have this physical experience with quantity, when they're writing down 4 times 2 equals 8, they understand it in a much deeper way than just asking them to memorize, the language piece of this. Trained adults. So Montessori is really, the Children's House. There's 3 components of the Children's House. There is the children, obviously the most important. There is the environment, and then there's the trained adults. And so within Many Rivers Montessori, we have, caring guides or lead teachers, we oftentimes refer to as guides. We have caring guides and assistants, and they're just the cornerstone of the Montessori philosophy. We're trained to follow each child's natural development. We're trained to plan appropriate work for them and care for and respect each child's potential. So all the lead teachers at Many Rivers Montessori are trained through a training program provided by the Association Montessori International, which is the association Maria Montessori herself founded to really keep this educational practice as authentic as we can. The assistants we have in the rooms are from a variety of backgrounds, but really have great diverse expertise that allows them to support the children within the room, but also help support me and our other lead teachers so that we're able to give that individualized education. So when I'm giving an individualized lesson, the assistants are doing a wonderful job keeping that lovely tone of the rest of the environment and making sure children are finding work to go to, redirecting a child who might be having a difficult time. And they're really a great support. And I, as a trained adult, I have expressed how we observe and we want to provide presentations that are appropriate for where children are at developmentally. I spend a lot of time observing children, observing where's their interest? Where are they at mathematically? Where are they at with understanding the phonetic sounds of the letters? And all of those observations come together to provide this really, really in-depth and personal experience where I'm able to give lessons that are tailored for individual children versus giving lessons that are for an entire class. Every child's different. And so though these lessons move from concrete to abstract, though I have a variety of lessons, I want children to have their interests incorporated with their education. And that observation for where they're at developmentally and where their interests lie really assist me in providing them with a really high quality education. I just have another beautiful quote by Maria Montessori here. The teacher must realize that within the child there is a powerful energy on which he is continually drawing, an energy which has nothing to do with the adult. The adult must understand that he is not the creator behind the child, but that he is the humble servant of this marvelous expression of life. I love this quote because it really speaks to children's natural ability to learn. Children are learning all the time. Working with 3 to 6-year-olds is so fun because they're in this period Maria Montessori described as the absorbent mind period, where they're absorbing everything around them and they have this phenomenal capacity to take in information. And so as a teacher, my job is not to teach. My job is to expose children to experiences that will allow them to teach themselves. Indoor and outdoor environments. Dr. Montessori herself believed that any environment that did not have access to the outdoors was incomplete. We are very lucky at Many Rivers to have patios attached to all of our children's house environments. So when the weather is working for us, we're able to take our work outside and we can, work on the decimal system outside and watch those golden beads shine in the sun. We can go outside and read a book together. It's just wonderful to have that ability to have our work done in the outdoor environment. And then we have a wonderful children's house playground that this photograph here was taken on our playground where children are able to really engage with those gross motor activities, including climbing, shoveling, running, all that fun stuff that children enjoy doing. Children's house readiness. So for a child to be ready to join the children's house, we are looking for a few things. We're looking for independence in toileting. We're looking for independence in dressing and undressing. The ability to transition between activities as well as locations. We are hoping for children to show social awareness of others around them. Children having the ability to communicate their needs and also follow directions. And we also want children to be able to adapt to the routine of the classroom. Now, this is what we're looking for. However, we know we're working with very young children. And so we want to help them along their journey in mastering these different skills. So we don't expect perfection, but what we're trying to avoid is a child every single day having multiple challenges in one or more of these areas, because we want to set children up for success. And so, again, perfection is not the goal, but perfection rather is not the expectation to join the children's house, but we're looking for the majority of time, these are things that they are able to accomplish. And when there is, a struggle here and there, of course, we're there to support them and we're going to help them learn, but we want to have generally these different skills. They're on their way to being able to be able to do these things. But we also want to be that support for children as they continue to learn. But we just want this to be something that as far as how you can help your child be ready for the children's house. And here's our mission. Many Rivers Montessori empowers our students to transform the world through world-class Montessori education, a focus on the whole child and an inclusive and fun community. We cultivate independent, academically prepared, and socially responsible citizens who will be lifelong learners and create creative problem solvers. And there's our website right at the bottom if you want to explore some more on the website. Well, thank you so much for listening to my spiel about Many Rivers Montessori. It's a wonderful learning environment, and I hope that you consider your children to join our communities. Have a great day.